You're looking at an arrangement of different Blackmagic cameras here with two Ursa Blackmagic Ursa broadcasts, and this is a Studio 4K, and this one here is a micro studio camera, and way over there in the distance there is another micro studio camera. But currently I'm just using the four cameras here, and I'm going to show you the paint controls of the new CCU controller. I'm running in not great light. I've just got a fluorescent light up there, which is one of the new LED fluoros, and then panning over to the CCU control center over here. You can see there's the 4x CCU controller, and there are the four cameras that we're looking at. And we're looking at two Blackmagic Ursa cameras at the top, Ursa broadcast and that's the studio camera, and that's just the micro studio camera there. And you can probably see it's hard telling colour, when a phone is doing automatically colour adjustments, as well as shutters not syncing up very well, but you can see those four cameras matching pretty well, and I've painted the cameras to suit the situation. Now, the painting for the CCU controller, for this CCU controller, is always online, and it's always going to paint the camera that's currently selected. And as I've shown you in previous videos, to select the camera, you just push the preview button, and it'll select the camera and it'll stay selected, even though I've got this set to toggle the aux bus that I'm using to preview, and you can see as I push the button it's going down and selecting each camera. And also you can hold your finger on one camera and just select the next camera just by pushing the button. So I'm holding this one, pushing this one, and that will work obviously with each camera. So there's me switching between camera 1 and camera 3, and then camera 1 and camera 4, and then you can also do camera 2 and camera 4, camera 2 and camera 3. Anyhow, I've covered that in a previous video. But as I said, you're going to just select your camera just by pushing the button, and there's the camera selected. So with the paint control, as I mentioned also in the introduction video, these top four knobs do your gains and they do your gammas when used in conjunction with the shift button, which is over here, and the bottom row do your blacks. Now in most cases when you're doing an OB, doing a location multicam shoot, you're really only adjusting the gains and the lifts or blacks, and gammas you'd normally set up prior to your shoot, and very rarely would you be adjusting them, especially when you've got matching cameras. I've got these four cameras here. I've matched them all up without touching the blacks or the gammas at all. These are just four Blackmagic cameras of different varieties, and I've just painted using the gain, but you can do all adjustments on the CCU panel here. Now, in talking about doing the adjustments for the paints, the very basic operation is that, as I said, if you're doing the gain, I'm going to be talking about just gains for this one, but we'll be able to. The same applies to the blacks, and so just by turning the gains, the red, it's going to increase and decrease the red for the last selected camera. Normally you'd be holding the button down, and I'm going to do this trickily with my wrist. I'm just holding down camera 1 and I'm turning the red, but you'll be able to see that same thing as I do this with the 4-way. This is just using a super source to do a 4-way. Now to adjust the gain, as I said, you just turn the knob left and right. These are infinity turn knobs, and as I'm turning the knob, I'm going to bring the camera back a bit just because it's trying to recolor balance that camera, but you can see this camera up here is going more red, Now you can just do the fine adjust by doing the knob turn. Now if you push the knob in and turn, it'll do a much coarser control, and as you can see, it's going awfully red there, awfully red. So that's just winding it up. Now I'm just going to do the same, just wind it back. Most CCU adjustments you do by eye. You know, I've been doing CCU for 40 years, and it's a subjective thing. But sometimes you know, it's good to have scopes to see your adjustments. So if I actually hold that camera down, you can see as I'm turning the red up, the red's increasing on the scope, and as I turn it down, just got to hold my wrist on the. I can then see my wrist is doing the iris as well. So as I said, you do it subjectively by looking at a monitor, but it's good to have scopes to get things more accurate, especially with your blacks. You know, making sure your blacks aren't crushed. So I mean, if I wind the blacks down here, you'll see they're going into crush land. Or I can wind them up and bring the blacks up. Well, let's go to the full screen. There you go. So there's just you're doing your blacks. Blacks, as I said, you just do the knob adjustment on the iris paddle up here. Just do your blacks. So these paints, reds and the gains, gammas, and blacks. Normal fine operation, which in most cases is what you do when you're live, and push it down to get a coarser times 10. So you can, if you need to really pull the range in, rather than turn the knob 1,000 times, you can just turn it 100 times in coarse mode. Now you can also reset the values by just holding down the camera and pushing the knob in. You can reset the values to normal. You can also reset all the values by pushing down the knob and hitting the yellow button. And what that does, that'll actually reset all the values. And if I do that, you'll probably see what the camera looks like in its native unpainted values, and those aren't native unpainted values. I'll just show you up here on the there's camera 1. That's the camera that I just reset. So you can see as I turn the red gains up, there's the reds are moving. I can turn the red blacks up, turn the greens and blues, and then we can. I can't do the gamma because I can't use two hands, but the same thing would apply with the gamma. And then if I just hold my finger, hold down the camera select button using my wrist now, I'm just going to hit the yellow button, and you see everything's reset back to normal. So if you get too whacked out doing all your adjustments, you can bring everything back to normal just by holding down your preview button and then pushing the yellow button. So that's very quick way of getting that. Now, as I said, these controls are always in line, and I'm just going to now show you. This is our current screen, and you can see when you're doing paint controls, there's no display of what you're doing. And as I said, this is all a subjective thing. So you're just eyeballing your monitor and your waveform and just doing it by eye. But you can also push the PCC button, which is paint. I can't remember what it stands for. Paint. Anyhow, it's the built-in PCC control that the ATEM has with its color, which is this particular screen here. So when I go to PCC, it's going to open up the display for the paint controls. Now you're still using all your you've still got all your preview functions happening here. You've still got all your iris controls happening. It's just that this screen now has gone to paint. Now in paint control, as you go up here to focus, in the paint control, you don't have control of your basic functions. But if you want, you just go back to your main screen, so then you can do all your gains. Yeah, just show you the switching through the gains. That's back to 0. I can just crank it up. Oh, there you go. I'm going to frame it up a bit for you. And I'm just going to switch that back to that's 0. There you go. So that's just 0 gain. And but when you go into paint display here, hit the button over here, you'll see that it's you don't have those controls, but you can switch back to adjust them. But normally when you paint control, you don't really need to be accessing them. But as I said, the main controls are still there for you. Now, as you can see, as I turn the gain up, there's the gain going up. You can wind it down. I'm doing coarse at the moment, but this is fine. Just doing fine control. Now, what this does is a little number down the bottom here, and that basically tells you your times, the times scale that the display is looking at. So we're looking in a fine mode here, but if I keep on winding that down, you'll see that the cursor gets to the bottom, and it stays. The cursor's large. So if I'm talking about the wrong thing here, but as I keep going down, that shows us we're right at the bottom, and then we can then go the same and just crank it all the way up and go all to the top. So and you can see it's gone to 2. So it's now and the green bar has gone back down the bottom again because we've gone out of range for our fine. So now it's showing you that we're in ×2, and it's switched it automatically. Now we've gone back to ×1. I'll just switch between the two. So there's ×2, and the green bar will come down, and there's ×1. Now with gain on ATEM, it starts at 0, and so there's no minus values with gain. It's 0, and you can see the picture's gone because I've taken all the green out. And I can bring that back down again. So very rough look at the current gain setting, and over here you can see there's I'll use a pencil to show you here. So this is our gains, this is our gammas. Gains displayed by white, gammas displayed by grey, and your lifts or blacks are shown by black. As you can see, the blue lift is up a bit high, so I can wind that down. So you can just get an idea of the position of all those 3 paint values, and you can see green gains up. So you just bring them back to normal just to get them in the right position. I'm rushing through this very quickly. So that's your very quick paint controls. Now over to the right here, you can actually use this is your contrast, saturation, and hue and YRGB. Now these correspond to these adjustments here on your software: contrast, saturation, hue, and RGB. And to be able to adjust those values, I'm just going to find something that's switch here. All you do is you just select. So we wanted to adjust contrast. We just push it to select it. We can push it again to deselect it, or we can select any other item to adjust. And you can see, if I come out here a bit wider, you see this yellow light comes on over here, indicating that this particular knob is now switched in. If I deselect it, you'll see the yellow light's gone off. So if you've selected anything for adjust, you can then just press it up there, and there it's selected. Now all these other knobs still are doing your paint control, but as all we're doing now is that we've now invoked this particular knob, which is our adjust knob, to adjust this particular value, and this value we've selected as contrast. So you can do contrast, saturation, hue, and my RGB. And so as I turn the knob, you'll see the value changes, and also if you have a look at the software control panel, I've got the wrong camera selected. Let me just go and select it up here, camera 2, and you can see as I'm winding down the contrast knob, the value is changing down here, as it is down where am I over here, up here. And of course, if you also go and just use the slider on the control panel, on the software control panel, that value is always updating up here as well. So you can see me, that's me cranking that up. Can't come back wide enough to seal that, but anyhow, so it's always showing you the value that the ATEM is using. So whatever you adjust here, basically you're adjusting the value here, which is then sending the value to the ATEM, and then the ATEM is then sending that value back out to the CSU control panel, and then you can just deselect it just by pressing it again or selecting another value, whatever you need to select up here. And again, to reset it, you just have to, if I can do this with using my wrist, I'm just going to hold down the preview button and then push the adjust yellow knob, and then it resets it back to its value, and then we can deselect it. Now there is a much finer display mode for paint, and this uses, if we want to specifically look at the gains, gammas or blacks. So here's just displaying all three. So if I just say select the gains, we've now brought up the second window, which is showing you can see up here it says gain, and it's now showing us a much finer visual control of the different paint values, and